My name is John Luiz. I'm a professor of international management and strategy at the school, and I'm also the director of the MSc International Business and Development. And I'll hand over to Vikrant.
Thanks, John. So I'm Vikrant Shirodkar. I'm associate professor in international business, and yeah, I basically I'm the director of the other master's program, which is MSc in international management. So shall we go to Jerome, for example, just do a quick intro and.
Oh, yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Jerome Cuyos. I'm a graduate of one of the programs in the business school. I took up MSc International Business and Development. I just graduated actually this year, but finished the program September of last year.
He's being very modest. He was the best student of last year. And he's
Thank
coming to
you.
us from the Philippines at the moment. So thank you so much for joining us.
Hi everyone, I'm Run Hanli and I'm international management student. I'm also business school represent. So today I join this meeting. Maybe I will share some experience or my feeling about my major. Thank you.
So thanks, Ranhan. So just to say, Ranhan is a current student, and yeah, she's studying international management. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I think I'm going to start talking about the international management masters first, and then I'll hand it over to John, who'll talk about the other MSc, which is International Business and Development. So I'm just going to upload, I'm going to share my slides. So I hope you can see them. Okay, so again, hello everyone, so I'm going to talk about the MSc in International Management. Uh, so in case I'm sure some of you must have already decided to study international management, but if not, here's something why you should study international management. So first of all, the key advantage of studying this course is to develop a cross-cultural perspective and a cross-cultural competence. So basically, in this course, you will learn a lot about how different cultures impact the workplace and so on. Um, so um, so if you are working in a multinational company or a company which is engaged in exporting or any sort of international business, so this is a good course so that you can actually it enables you to work in a multicultural team or manage multicultural teams. The second um, aspect is about, again, developing a global perspective um, and gaining career prospects in multinational companies which are global, especially in what we call expatriate roles, meaning that so if, for example, if you're if these kind of companies often send employees to work in international assignments in different countries. So if you have studied international management and if you've studied abroad in a foreign country, so that improves your global perspective, your cross-cultural competence, and it kind of increases your chances of these roles. So yeah, so if you're kind of looking forward to working in a international setting, then this is a good course to gain knowledge as well as experience in that sense. Okay, so thirdly, of course, so this, for example, when you become a senior manager, or if you're already a senior manager, um, and if you would like to know about how multinational companies make all these strategic decisions about how to enter a foreign market, or how to expand further in a non-domestic or foreign market, considering not just the opportunities or attractiveness of that market, but also risks and other sustainability issues, etc. Then this course gives you an in-depth systematic knowledge as well as skills on how to actually do research on making this important decision. Okay, so and then finally also this course kind of improves your strategic and critical thinking within international business. So critical thinking is about thinking from multiple perspectives. So often today we get a lot of knowledge and information from various sources like news and social media and all these kind of sources. But how do you think critically? How do you actually read between the lines, and how do you actually use multiple perspectives to improve your thinking and decision making? So this is what you learn in this master's program. Okay, so so now, so if you're already excited about international management, then the question is, why Sussex? So we have a very good reputation. So especially if you're interested in the other masters, international business and development. So we are ranked #1 in the world in development studies. But otherwise, we are also ranked #10 in marketing. We are in top 20 in business and economics, generally in the field of business and economics in the UK. So generally, yeah, so we have a sort of good reputation worldwide as well as in the UK. So we are also a research active business school. So we are ranked #1 in the UK in annual research income. So what it means for you is that basically, so we are very active in doing research, and so this means that we have a lot of up-to-date knowledge about various fields, including international business. So, and this means that you get a lot of up-to-date curriculum and knowledge about this particular field. So, so that is something which is important. We also have an excellent international business faculty. There are many universities which offer international management courses, but very few of them have a rich international business faculty, meaning experts in international business. So that is something which Sussex has and you can benefit from. From 2026, Sussex is also offering guaranteed internships if you're interested, and this can boost your career prospects. So apart from these things, we are located in Brighton, which you see over here, which is pretty much in the south of the UK. So Brighton is known for good sunshine, especially if you're coming from countries like South Asia, where there is a lot of sunshine. So compared to the north of the UK, the south is a lot more rich in sunshine, and we're close to the beach. Generally, a great city to be in. It's very multicultural, and it's a fun city. Connectivity wise, just 1 hour from London, 30 minutes from London Gatwick. So overall, yeah. So it's a nice place to study your masters. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about a little bit about the course and about the different modules that you will study in this particular course. So core modules are the modules which are basically about, they are compulsory and they're really, really important. So now we have basically 3 terms: autumn, which runs from September to December, spring from January to May, and then summer, which goes from June to September. Okay, so in autumn, we have the 4 core modules: international business, marketing management, global innovation systems, and globalization integration. And then in spring, international non-market strategy and applied research methods for business. And then in summer, you have the dissertation or the research project. Okay, so So now I'm going to quickly talk about each one. So apart from these, obviously these core modules, you also have some options, especially in the spring term. So the optional modules are, you can choose any three from these five. So this is based depending on your interest. You can take, let's say, strategic management, for example, which talks a lot about strategy and how to make strategic plans. Social entrepreneurship, which focuses on how to start a business by focusing on social and environmental aspects. International HRM or international human resource management, if you're interested in human resource management. Innovation for sustainability, focusing on how companies focus on sustainable or green innovations. And then ethics and organization, which focuses more on ethics and social responsibility and so on. Okay, so these are optional modules. So you'll have the choice of three from these five, whereas these core modules are the compulsory modules. So a little bit more on all these core modules. So international business is taught by Professor Roger Strange. He's a professor of international business. So this module largely talks about the theories of foreign trade, foreign investment, outsourcing, management of multinational enterprises, global supply chains, emerging markets, and stuff like that. And also how foreign investment has an impact on home country and host countries from which it's originating. Okay, so this is one of the key modules in international business for both international business and international management degrees. So the next one is marketing management. So marketing management focuses more on the marketing function. Basically here you will study how firms actually enter a new foreign market and make marketing related decisions, like how do they adjust their product or service offering, how do they promote their product in different countries, how is pricing adjusted, which different channels are used in marketing in different countries. So this is a more practical module focused on marketing. Students really enjoy the sort of how cultural differences and competitive and demographic differences impact these decisions. So this is another core module which you study in autumn. Then there's global innovation systems. So here you will study how companies innovate. If you think of large companies like Tesla, Amazon, etc., they gain competitive advantage from being innovative, and so how these companies organize their research and development activities or innovation activities across different countries. So this is what you study in this particular module. And then you have globalization and integration. So this module takes a bit of a historical, long-run perspective of the ideas of globalization and integration. So they talk about how culture has globalized, how distance has become shorter, how countries are integrating, and so on. Okay, and this is taught by John as well, in addition to some other faculty. So then in spring, so this is a new module which we are introducing in the spring term, and so I'm going to teach this module. So this module looks at the non-market, which is about social and political aspects of the business environment and how companies are engaging with this environment, such as through lobbying the government or collaborating with non-government organizations, communicating in the media, engaging in corporate social responsibility initiatives. So this module looks at how basically firms combine their marketing as well as non-market strategies to develop these integrated approaches. Okay, so and then in spring, you also have the research methods module, which is about how how you can develop practical skills of doing research in a systematic way in business. So this module focuses on collecting data and analyzing data and making decisions based on data. Okay, so this could involve qualitative as well as quantitative approaches, meaning qualitative approaches include interviews, focus groups, etc. Quantitative approaches means questionnaire surveys or using secondary data. So how do you use all of this data and analyze it and then make decisions? So this focuses on research methods in business. And then in summer, you will have the research project, which is your dissertation project, where you get to undertake a significant piece of research, drawing upon all the knowledge and skill that you've learned in the overall MSc program. So in this module, although I convene this module, each student gets assigned a dedicated supervisor, and you work with a supervisor to write your dissertation and do your research on this particular project. Okay, so yeah, so I think those are the key modules. Now a little bit about these internships. So from 2026, students will be offered a guaranteed internship. Again, this is optional, especially if you don't have any work experience before doing a master's. This kind of internships can be very useful to develop practical experience and to improve your career prospects. So this is open for both UK and international students. So it could be the company may be inside or outside. So I'm not 100% sure how it works because it's something new. But as I understand it, this will largely take place during the summer term. So you can do it alongside your dissertation. But yeah, so that's pretty much from me. So thank you, and I'll pass over to John. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. So let me just, somebody else is sharing. Oh, Vikrant, you've just got to, there you go. Thank you. And I will share my screen. So hopefully you can all see this. Whoops, come on. Just being very slow. Okay, so Vikrant has spoken about the MSc in International Management. The MSc in International Business and Development is a little bit different. There are some modules that overlap between the two programs, but this is really a degree which operates at the intersection of international business and development studies. As you know, Sussex is ranked #1 in the world for development studies. This is, Vikrant mentioned that, many schools offer the MSc in international management. This is a unique program in that it really isn't offered elsewhere. And it really brings the expertise that Sussex has, as Vikrant mentioned, in international business, where we have really sort of deep depth, but at the same time, our world-leading expertise in development studies. And what this recognizes is that the role of international business, the role of multinational enterprises is becoming much wider. It's not only about the importance of generating financial returns, but also recognizing social and environmental responsibilities. The other important thing is also just to recognize that multinationals operating in developing or emerging markets where the state, where the government, where the state doesn't necessarily perform the sort of functions that one would expect, multinationals very often have to step into that gap, into that void. And so this really is a degree which recognizes the fact that the role of multinational enterprises is becoming much wider, and that we as managers have to deal with global challenges. So who should take this course? Well, basically, either if you're working in or thinking about working in any area of international business, if you want to go and work for a multinational enterprise like Unilever or Barclays or something along those lines, if you are interested in working for a development agency, an NGO, or basically just looking at moving into a leadership role. And so this really is, I think, a very unique degree in that it's bringing these sort of combinations together, and also recognizing that the boundaries between multinational enterprises, development agencies, and NGOs, those boundaries are becoming increasingly blurred, and we're seeing sort of more hybrid type organizations coming into play, which I think this degree capitalizes upon as well. What you'll learn, you'll explore the principles of international business and strategic management, but through the lens of the UN SDGs. We examine the impact that the institutional environment has on your operations, and also look at how institutions impact you in your host countries, but also look at the impact that multinationals have on institutions as well. So recognizing that the broader institutional environment impacts multinationals, but at the same time, we are major stakeholders and have a major influence on the institutional environment itself. Something that's very unique to the program is that we have an inbuilt consultancy project where you'll learn, where you'll design and deliver a solution to real world business challenges. For example, this year, the students are working on a consulting project for Airbus. So that's one of the projects, but then also working with a local NGO, which has sort of a global footprint. And so the consultancy project, I think, is really unique. You'll benefit from an interdisciplinary teaching and research culture, and you'll be drawing on expertise from the University of Sussex Business School, including SPRU, the Science Policy Research Unit, which is one of the leading units in this sort of area in the world, as well as a School of Global Studies, which houses a lot of the development studies type of approaches. These are the modules. So you'll see that there is an overlap here in terms of international business, which Vikrant has spoken about. So this is a core module. But in addition, in the first semester, you'll do the international business module, and also the business activity and sustainable development. So this really looks at the intersection between international business and broader sustainability and development issues. And then an introduction to social development, which is offered by the School of Global Studies. In the second semester, you have applied research methods, industrial and innovation policy, once again offered by, this is now offered by SPRU, and then a module called Political Economy of International Business and Development, which is a module that I teach, which really looks at the intersection of political science, international business, and development, recognizing that business is not conducted in a political economy vacuum. And then lastly, there is the dissertation and the consulting project. You also have a range of options to choose from, and it's very exciting because you get to choose these options across departments. So for those of you who are interested in the energy transition, there's a module on energy and development. And as it happens in the area of energy economics, we have 2 or 3 of the leading international experts in the world in this area at the school. There is a module on fair trade, ethical business, and the new moral economies, which is offered by the School of Global Studies. International non-market strategy, which Vikrant has already spoken about. Managing economic instability, managing intellectual property. So as you know, intellectual property is very important. And so it looks at the challenges of managing intellectual property. And lastly, you can choose to do social entrepreneurship. Happy to talk about any of these modules afterwards if you have any questions. In terms of career options, there are a multitude of career options in terms of senior and strategic positions within multinational enterprises, small and medium-sized enterprises with a sustainability orientation, working for an international social enterprise, an international development agency, or in NGO. And actually, just to add that Brighton is located very close to a major international NGO hub, which is located around Gatwick Airport. So there's a lot of contact with these international NGOs. Or if you're interested in going to work for a consulting firm, particularly a consulting firm with a focus on sustainability and development, I think this program is very well geared for that. And likewise, government organizations that are monitoring the impact and the delivery of the SDGs. Entry requirements, you can find this all online, but you've got to, there's the English language requirements. In terms of degree requirements, you should have at least a lower second-class degree. It doesn't have to be in business. It can be from a range of different disciplines. And I think one of the strengths is particularly that we have students there that come from development, economics, business, and so forth in the class. And so it makes for a very rich environment. We also have a career winning, an award-winning careers and entrepreneurship team at the school. And these provide group and one-to-one information. And so there are a range of workshops organized around employability and entrepreneurship and innovation. We have an innovation hub at the university as well, all of which you have access to. I've already mentioned this. I just want to make certain we leave time for questions. Vikrant has mentioned that we have guaranteed internships, and I think this is a very exciting development that we've introduced from this year. Support after you graduate, you can keep using the careers team up to after 3 years after you graduate. And so this is a resource which remains available to you. And so, I think we have some really strong support in this area. Scholarships, we have a range of scholarships available. So if you are an alumnus of the university, there are unlimited £3,000 scholarships. We also have various country scholarships, so unlimited scholarships for £4,000 if you're from one of those countries, and 5,000 scholarships for applicants who are from Turkey and India. And there are a range of additional scholarships. And again, if you just click on that link, you'll see sort of a range of scholarships which are available, either specific to a particular area of study, or alternatively, as I mentioned, some of these are country or nationality focused. Why study at the business school? Quite frankly, we are unique. I cannot think of another school in the UK which brings the particular expertise that we have in terms of especially having, Sprue situated within the school. So, we think very carefully, not only about business issues, but also policy, innovation studies. And it really is a very collaborative, interdisciplinary school where we are, constantly looking at how we can shape global issues in business, management, and society, and how we can make an impact. We offer a very international experience, both in terms of our students, also in terms of Brighton itself, but also in terms of our faculty composition. We are top ranked. We are particularly proud that I think it's now sort of for a number of years, we have been ranked #1 in the world for development studies, beating places like Harvard into second place. So we really are sort of world leaders in the area of development studies. And we have a number of accolades here, which Vikrant also mentioned. Very importantly, wherever you choose to study, we hope it's Sussex, but make certain that it is accredited, particularly that it is accredited by Equus and Amber. These are two of the most important accreditation agencies. And the school is also in the process of going through its AACSB accreditation. And if that happens in September, we'll be one of only basically 100 schools worldwide that will have that triple accreditation. So that really will be a feather in our cap. We have a range of student support services available. And maybe when we hand over to Jerome, he can talk a little bit about sort of campus life. But there is a very rich campus life and also a lot of student support. Our location, we are located in Brighton, 10 minutes from the Brighton Centre, 30 minutes from Gatwick. We have a train station literally on campus. And so it's very easy to get to London. It's very easy to get into the city centre. It also really is a beautiful campus. It's very green. We are surrounded by green fields, sheep. If I look out my window, I can see sheep on the other side. So it really is a lovely green belt sort of surrounding our campus. Brighton is a vibrant city. It's very inclusive. In May, we're heading into it now. We host the biggest arts festival in England. And so it's a city where there's always something happening. It's very quirky. It's very bohemian. I think it's a really, really charming city. The Lanes is an area of lots of independent shops. There isn't anything quite like it. And so instead of going to a place which is very generic, I can guarantee you that Brighton is anything but generic. For those of you into football, the Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club basically is sort of, I think it's on our campus, but it's just on the other side of our campus. They are a Premier League team. And we are very proud of them because they keep beating the bigger teams and I think are sort of 8th at the moment. And so it's very exciting. And even if you don't end up supporting Brighton, you get to support and you're a Liverpool or Man United supporter. We don't encourage that. But, they'll come and play here at the Amex Stadium as well. So all in all, a really interesting place, very exciting, both from an academic perspective, but also in terms of the city. happy to take questions, but let me first hand over to Jerome, who was or is an alumnus from the MSc IBD from last year. So Jerome, handing over to you.
Thank you so much, John. So yeah, basically, I just would like to share my personal experience of studying in University of Sussex and how it essentially helped me in the work that I do today. So just to give you a quick background, I'm Jerome. I'm currently working as a senior manager in the largest universal bank here in the Philippines. I think I would take credit to the program as well because it ushered me quite easily. It gave me some leverage into finding this job right now. So I get to handle a portfolio of companies from different sectors, helping them to be more sustainable and how to expand their business operations through lending. No? So I just finished, as mentioned by John earlier, just finished my program last year. I took up MSc International Business and Development as as a Chevening Scholar. So let me just share to you some of the thought process that I took into in choosing a program, because I think this is also one of the reasons why you're here, as to how to choose the right program for you. So basically, there are three things that I took when I was looking for a program. So I look at what I want. Then I did something on that, and I'm gonna share to you what I found with my research. So basically, it took some reflection and introspection as to what I want and what program I would really want to venture into now. So I was very sure because I was already working in the banking sector for quite a while, and at the same time, I was quite active in the social civic sector here in the Philippines. So I was very pretty sure that I want a program that's going to be a fusion between business and development. And I think John really clearly mentioned that. Because I think sustainable development goals is one of the emerging topics, especially in emerging economies like that of the Philippines. So I was pretty sure that what I want and the program is a fusion basically of business and development. And so what I did is that I look into several universities in the UK. I look at not only the rankings, because the rankings are good enough as entry screening for you as someone who's looking for a program, but I was very specific also with the core modules that I want to study. So I really look into the websites of these universities, looking into the modules that they're going to offer. And I think the modules that Sussex University offered was very compelling to me because it's very, not only that it's very foundational in terms of international business and development, but I think the optional modules also are quite varied, where I get to really choose something that resonated to what I want to study, So unlike you guys, I wasn't able to attend webinars, but I just explored on some student experiences in the website. I look at some career outcomes and research more on that. No? So that's what I did basically to look for the things that I want. And so what I found basically are those things that Jan and Vikrant mentioned to you. But let me just share to you what actually what actually attracted and navigated me to study in the business school and in Sussex University and ultimately take up international business and development. Well, aside from Sussex University ranked one in terms of development studies, because I want a fusion between development and business. So I think that's one of the major factors why I took up here. But aside from that, I've mentioned about the elective modules that truly attracted me. I mean, it's very varied, that there's, especially in terms of the topics, I was particularly navigated with the social entrepreneurship module, because that's something that that is emerging here in the Philippines. I want to know more about that, how developed economies are working into social enterprise and how they can be more sustainable, and how it fuse into the lens of sustainable development goals. So I was really particularly attracted with the optional modules that Sussex University has offered, and that is actually one of my deal breakers in terms of looking for a university in the program. And aside from that, I think what I found really is how charming and how diverse Brighton as a city is. And I think that's as someone coming from the Philippines or from a tropical nation, I was looking for a beach. And I think Brighton is one of those. I mean, that's one that is offered by Brighton. And yeah, John was right that it's not only about your academic experience, but it's also about your lifestyle. And if you're looking for something if you want to be more active, I think Brighton has offered that. It's very, to me, it, it's it's unique and it has so many to offer. I mean, you can be calm, you can look at the parks, you can just go to Stanmore Park, for instance, and go running. But if you want to be more lively and active, you can go to the city center and explore good coffee, good activities. I mean, it has so many to offer. So if it can be both relaxing and it can also be active. So you can have the best of both worlds. If you will go to Brighton, you can just choose, if today you want to be active, you can go to this particular part of Brighton. But if tomorrow you want to relax, you can just go to another part of Brighton. So that's how I describe Brighton. It has so many to offer that you can just be whoever you want to be at a certain point in a day. So yeah, I think those were the three key factors that actually navigated me to studying in Sussex and in the best in Brighton in general. So this time, allow me to share some of the experiences that I've had here in Sussex that actually gave me some insights into the work that I do right now. One of the highlights I would say that I cherish is the dynamic academic experience that Sussex has offered. I mean, for an international business and development, or for international study at that, I think one of the selling propositions for Sussex is the diversity of the cohort. Like most of us are really international students coming from different backgrounds, coming from different parts of the world. So in terms of like sharing, there are so many that these students can really offer, and you get to learn from them. I mean, you will hear stories that you've never heard before, coming from both emerging and developed economies that are coming into one platform to discuss about certain issues. So yeah, I think the academic system also in UK in general or in Sussex, no, is quite different to me as someone from the Philippines. But I really like how the seminar and the workshops are being more intimate, where you get to really share your insights, and the facilitators and the professors really are good facilitators in terms of bringing out insights from the students. They just don't talk about their insights, but they also get insights from the students and allow these students to share perspectives about certain topics. And I really appreciate that the case studies also that they've shared are also relevant. I mean, there are some foundational case studies that are way before, but there are also case studies that are really up to date. And I really appreciate that because it made us more aware and updated into the current situations in the world. So I really appreciate the discussions, case studies, and how intimate that is in the workshop and in the seminars. And I think one in terms of the academic experience, I really appreciate the support from the faculty. I mean, I think I mentioned that one of those things that I research on is the research interest of the faculty members in a specific university, because I think that's very transparent and visible in in the website. So that's one of those that I really look into because there are some topics that you are really navigated into, and I just appreciate the diversity also of the research interest of the faculty members, and how you can just easily approach to them if ever you want to know more about the certain topics. You can just send emails to them, and you could set an appointment, and they would just really reply within 24 hours, and just really appreciate how how helpful they are in terms of like expanding certain topics that you'd like to explore on. So another one I think is the networking and the societies, because well, as someone who's studying business, I think networking opportunities are one of those that you really wanted to maximize, no? And I really appreciate that the Sussex Business School has really organized networking opportunities, not only for you to network among business schools, but even students from the different departments and different colleges. So you get to connect also with different students, no, and get to learn from them. And also the diversity of the societies in the business school and in Sussex University in general, they're so varied that whatever interest you would like to go into, be it in sports, cultural, or academic, it's really available. So it's just really a matter of time management for you guys. So, well, I think the life in Brighton is one of those that really navigated me, and I think Jan and Vikrant has already shared a lot on that. But yeah, I think Brighton is one of the biggest propositions for Sussex University, I guess. So ultimately, let me just share just two pieces of advice for you guys as you look into your program at university. I think it's very important that that while you're looking for a university and a program right now, be it whether you are already working or you're just a fresh graduate from university, you have to be clear with your why as to what career path you would like to take into, because it's very important in choosing for a program and a university. And if I may suggest, do not just choose the right school, but choose the right course with the specific modules and topics that would really expand your interest, because at the end of the day it's you who is studying there, and you should be studying something that would interest you and that would navigate you into something that you want to be in the future. So yeah, I think those were some of the pieces of advice that I can just leave you with. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone. I think I chose international management because I'm really interested in how business operates globally, especially across different cultural contexts. I have always been curious about how companies adapt their strategies when entering different markets and how cultural differences influence customer behavior, branding, and communication. This course allows me to explore this aspect in more structures and academic way. And I enjoy the most about MSc that I have found the marketing related content the most interesting, particularly because I can directly connect it to my previous experience. Before starting the course, I worked as a model in China for around 5 years, during which I was actively involved in social media marketing and online promotion. I managed my own account where I gained over 2,000 followers and achieved more than 5 million views across my contacts. I was responsible for creating film and edition all of my videos. In addition, I co-manage another account with a friend, which has now grown to over 50,000 followers. Because of this background, when I study marketing models, I can link theoretical concepts such as branding, audience targeting, and digital engagement strategies to real situation I have experienced. This makes the learning process much more meaningful and practical for me. I think when I finished my degree, this course has made me more interested in pursuing a career in marketing or fashion-related industrials, especially in international context. Beyond marketing, models related to international business and strategy have also influenced my thinking. For example, understanding how firms enter foreign markets, manage cross-cultural differences, and build international partnerships has made me more interested in cross-border business. In the future, I would like to combine my practical experience with knowledge I have gained from this course, possibly work in international marketing or even build my own brand that operates across different countries. I think if someone wants to know this course more, I think the one important thing to know is that the course is quite theory based, but it becomes much more available if you actively try to link it with real life experience. For example, in my case, when learning about marketing or international business concepts, I can relate them to my own experience in social media content creation, audience engagement, and working with brands. This helps me better understand the theories and also see how they can be applied in practice. Overall, so I think it's a really rewarding course for students or who are interested in global business and are willing to connect academic knowledge with real life situation. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you so much, both to Jerome and Ruhan. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Sort of opening it up for any questions. Stop sharing. Go.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. That was really interesting. If anyone's got any questions, do type them in. We've got a few minutes for questions. I can see we've got one in the Q&A at the moment, so I'll put that to the panel. So for the consultancy project with the MSc International Business and Development, is this done individually or do you work as part of a team?
Yeah, so the answer is both. You work, so initially you work as part of a team. At the moment, for example, the group that's working with Airbus, it's a group of 3. And so the way in which it works is so Airbus came to us with a brief. The students will now have now met with the company and start to unpack how they're going to approach the consultancy project. This happens sort of between February and June. And so in February, they start working with the client. They then basically working in groups of 3 on this project, meeting with the client, and then present to the client at the beginning of June and present a report and an actual presentation to the client. We will also be there and we will get the feedback from the client as well. Afterwards, the students then work on an academic project linked to the consulting project. So basically the first part, which is directly working with the client, that tends to be done in a group, and then the students individually go and work on sort of an outgrowth of the consulting project in that sort of direction. I don't know, Jerome, if I've explained it terribly well, but I think that's sort of are you confirming that is exactly how it happens?
I may also share, I didn't take up the consultancy, but if I may share some of the feedback that I got from my classmates, because most of them took the consultancy. I think that's one of their highlights also in the program, because it's a hands-on experience for them to solve real world challenges. So, and I think it's also some sort of a skill development for them in terms of presentation, in terms of research, because they get to really, present something that's value adding to the company. So I think that's one of the highlights for most of my classmates also.
Yeah, so just to add there, so you've got the choice of whether you want to go the consulting project route or whether you want to go sort of the more traditional academic dissertation route. Jerome did a fantastic piece of work as an academic dissertation. So I'm very pleased he went that route because he really did do a fantastic piece of work. Any other questions?
Yes, we do have another question, John. I think it might be for you again, but can you talk a bit more about the research expertise in international business and development, and what sort of projects are you working on, and do you talk about these in classes?
Yes, I mean, both Vikrant and I can talk to that, but maybe I will mention a couple of things. So one is we are a very research active department. So all of us are very active in research, but I think what's also very important is that most of us are also involved in consulting work. So I do work with multinational corporations, with NGOs. I've been working with the United Nations, with various UN agencies for the last, I think, 11 years. And so I think Jerome can probably testify to the fact that I'm always drawing on that in the class situation itself. So I think we are all drawing both on our academic experience, our research experience, but at the same time on our consulting experience, which I think is important just in terms of, enriching and making certain sort of that it's not just academic as well. So I think that's important. Vikrant, I don't know if you want to pick up.
Yeah, sure. So I do a lot of work on non-market on the non-market aspect of business, which is largely related to social and environmental context of business and how businesses uh, respond to these things. So, for example, so I think when it comes to doing research, so I work on some funded projects as well as I do my own research. Um, so in terms of the funded project, so I'd done a project which was funded by the European Union, um, and it was about how the European Union's trade policies um, are are incorporating sort of sustainability provisions. So, for example, so if a country wants to export to into the European Union, then there is a standard tariff. But if countries individually sign up to these sustainability related provisions, then they get to kind of export at a lower tariff. So it's and so so this is something. So the European Union basically wanted to know if this scheme was working. It was working well in terms of kind of bringing about sustainable development in those countries. So we did a lot of research on the environmental provisions. Um, and what we found was that a lot of complex results, but in many countries it was actually working. So in a way, this kind of schemes tries to put some pressure on countries, especially developing countries, to engage more in sort of reducing pollution, and it also encourages companies to get certified on these kind of such as the International Standards Organization 14,001, and so there are lots of sort of green initiatives, both private and government based. So what we found was that a lot of complex effects, but yes, this kind of scheme was working to achieve some sustainable development objectives. So yeah, so I think so apart from that, I also do a lot of research on emerging markets, especially on the internationalization of companies from emerging markets, especially India, for example. So this again sort of so we look at, for example, what kind of multinational enterprises from emerging markets are more likely to internationalize. Where do they internationalize? For example, it's usually companies like, for example, Tata's and many state-owned enterprises from China, for example, they're internationalizing quite a lot. So what we are seeing is that compared to 30 years ago, now these companies are becoming more and more competitive. They're climbing up into the Fortune 500 and so on. So I do a lot of research on these types of companies and how these companies are different from the usual Western companies coming from the US or Europe, and how they're catching up with these companies, and so how they're catching up, how they're innovating, how they're kind of competing, and so on. So all of this, I think, so those are the two main areas where I do research on, and I think it helps me quite a lot in teaching as well. So yeah, so that's a bit from my end.
Okay, thank you. I'm currently looking for internship opportunities related to this area. So about marketing consulting. So if someone needs a research assistant or another, can email me. In UK, it's okay. In Europe, it's also okay. Okay, thank you.
Good plug there. You can see you're a strong marketing student.
Yeah.
Thank you. And there's one final question. Someone's asked around where they can find more information on the guaranteed internships that were mentioned, and I'll post a link into the chat for that, so you can always have a look there. But I don't know if anyone else. Oh, there we go. John's put it in there.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I've just put it there. So there's a lot of information. I must confess that, like Vikrant, we're still trying to find our feet. So in terms of but there's a lot of information there. And if you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out, and we can give you more information.
Fantastic. I'm also just going to put my email address in there, and if anyone has any general questions around scholarships or the application process, I know that was mentioned during the presentation around scholarships, but if you want more details or how to find those, you can always contact me via my email address in the chat. Haven't seen any more questions, haven't come in for a little bit, so I think unless anyone's got anything else to add, we'll end the session there. But if anyone's got any final kind of thoughts or comments they want to add, please feel free.
No, just to say, we look forward to seeing your applications, and it's a bright sunny day here. So going back to the point that Vikrant made about best weather in the UK, I was going to say set your expectations relatively low when we talk about best weather, but it definitely is the best weather in the UK. So thanks, everyone, and just to again say thank you again to Jerome and Ruhan. I really appreciate it.
Thank you also, Jan. Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day, and hopefully we'll see some of you on campus. Take care, everyone.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.